Right, let's look at polluting gases. Now, this is a big chunk of the atmosphere chapter, so this should cover not all of it, but quite a few of the pages. So, when we're looking at polluting gases, I think when students answer questions and they use the word polluting gases, it's quite generic. So, what you need to do is you need to be very specific in what you are, which gas you're talking about. Now, the most common gas that a lot of students obviously recognize is carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide, we all know, is a big contributor to global warming. Um, so I think most students are quite happy with that and understanding the impacts of global warming in terms of seawater, sea level rising and ice caps melting, weird weather patterns and climate change. So that's fine. So we can talk about that as well and say ice caps melting, sea level rising. Okay. Also, it's also worth noting other greenhouse gas. Often, a lot of students forget this. It's water vapor and methane. So just be aware of that. Sometimes they say aside carbon dioxide, name another greenhouse gas. So that's usually the two that you'd want to be talking about. So carbon dioxide is a relatively straightforward one. Now, just be aware that carbon dioxide is made from complete combustion. So complete combustion meaning there was plentiful supply of oxygen. Talking of supply of oxygen, the one that we should be worried about if it's something that's happening quite close to us is the incomplete combustion of a fuel which produces carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is caused by incomplete combustion. So incomplete combustion. Now carbon monoxide, the big issue with carbon monoxide is it's highly toxic. So that basically means it's poisonous. Now there may be questions where that you have to give a bit more detail with how that is, and what happens basically is that our red blood cell contains a protein called hemoglobin, and the hemoglobin binds with carbon monoxide. So hemoglobin binds with carbon monoxide, stopping oxygen from being carried in the red blood cell. Okay, so that's a bit more detail if you need to, depending on the number of marks available. That will sort of give you a bit more detail on that. Now, then we look at impurities in fuel. So there's two main impurities that we get. Well, one particular impurity that we get in petrol is sulfur. So when sulfur burns, so that's an impurity in fuel. So when sulfur burns, it produces sulfur dioxide. Now sulfur dioxide has direct link to causing acid rain. So basically what happens is sulfur dioxide gets released into the atmosphere, goes all the way up to the clouds, mixes with water vapor, and produces sulfuric acid. Now, the main issue with sulfur dioxide is that soil acidity increases, so soil becomes more acidic, which obviously causes issues with plant growth. And if there's issues with plant growth, there'll obviously be animals that feed on that plant will also suffer. Um, so animals that feed on these plants suffer. So that's one of the main reasons, but now there are other reasons. Acid rain can damage buildings. Historic buildings usually made of limestone. Acid rain will have can cause damage to these buildings. So damages buildings. Okay. Now the other gas that's produced in a combustion engine is nitrous oxide. Now nitrous oxide is made through, because you've got a supply of oxygen. Remember, air is a large proportion of air is nitrogen. So when oxygen goes into be burnt through the fuel, nitrogen obviously goes in with it, and due to the temperature you end up making nitrous oxide. So nitrous oxide just means nitrogen monoxide or dioxide, so NO or NO2 for now. Now these gases can have a problem with as acid rain, so that's one of the issues. Now the other issue is it can cause breathing difficulties, particularly in cities and towns. So it can cause breathing issues. So people who suffer from asthma can be affected by nitrous oxide. So that's one of the problems with nitrous oxide. And the last one, I guess, is particulates. Now particulates is just made small bits of carbon soot that generally makes things dirty. So it is a problem, but not as much of a problem as the other gases that we have here. So that covers most of the polluting gases, and which is part of the atmosphere chapter.